Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Samantha Tai, and I am the Audience Relations and Communication Coordinator here at InterArts Matrix. Before we continue with today's program, I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land from which I speak to you today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Neutral Peoples. The city, now known as Kitchener, exists under the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, which was originally signed by the Six Nations and the Dutch. But throughout history, other nations, including France and England, have also signed on. This treaty is made up of three tenets that characterize our collective responsibility: take only what you need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. As a settler on this land, I am also bound to this treaty, and I recognize that I have not always upheld my treaty duties. I share this with you because whether we are colonizers or have been colonized, it's important that we recognize the impact that colonization has had, because we are all responsible in creating a more just future for everyone. So once again, welcome to this afternoon's X Camera Talk. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time today, I just want to give a little background on the X Camera series. So X Camera began in spring of 2019 when a group of people who were interested in the arts began gathering at Fresh Ground Cafe or the Common Studio every Friday afternoon to hear a lecture by an interdisciplinary artist or professional. These lectures were followed by a question and answer period, and then time for people to stay in the space, eat lunch together, continue their conversations, and build a community. This happened every Friday afternoon until March 2020, when our gatherings shifted online. It's in this spirit of supporting artists and building community that X Camera has continued virtually since then. So for the last few weeks, we've been focusing on the practices and projects of each of the 6 artist mentees who are participating in the Cove CoVox incubator. Cove is a project funded primarily by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, with the goal of transmitting knowledge to the next generation of artistic directors. The second half of this project, CoVox, is funded by Canada Council for the Arts Digital Strategies Fund and builds on Cove with the goal of experimenting, developing, and sharing knowledge about digital audience engagement. Partner organizations for Cove CoVox include Empty Space, Open Ears Festival, Numis, Studio D20, Neruda Arts, and Idea Exchange. We've been so lucky to have Marie LeBlanc Flanagan joining us to host this series, and we once again have Marie joining us today to host today's artist. So Marie works in the playful spaces between people and is especially passionate about building connections and creating community. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Sam. And hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here with you all again. I don't know, is this the very last one? I think it might be. It's like an absolute pleasure today to introduce you to Kate Kamo McHugh, who is from Kitchener, Ontario. From Kitchener, Ontario, and Kate is a multidisciplinary theater artist and is a dancer and is someone who's really excited about movement. And yeah, Kate, come up on the stage with me.
Welcome. I am really excited about movement. That's so correct. Hi, everyone.
Thanks. So today we're going to talk a little bit about you, your practice, your project, what's up with you. And I'd love to start, if you don't mind, for people who don't know you, who haven't met you yet, if you can tell us a little bit about you, about like where your artistic journey began, like where you come from in that sense as an artist and as a human.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thank you. So yes, I am primarily a dancer. My background is in dance. I studied dance here in Kitchener at a great studio, Carousel Dance Center, and I went to the arts high school here, Eastwood Collegiate, and then kept going to theater school in Toronto. I would say in the past 2 years, my artistic career has really evolved. In my 20s, I only worked for other people. I was like a hired body to be in a show, do the choreography, whatever. the company wants, all like very text-based work. And yeah, that was in my 20s. And actually when I turned 30, I burnt out completely, and I was tired of going to auditions, of the hustle. And I think I naturally, I wanted a change, a big change. And so I left working in the arts completely, and I took a really steady job working at a school in Bulgaria. And I didn't work as an artist for 5 years. About 5 years. I was still involved in the arts. I became heavily involved with Balkan folk dancing. So like totally different than my training in ballet or jazz, or like I worked on a cruise ship for a while. So this was like a total change, Balkan folk dancing. And I'm actually still in a group in Kitchener. We meet on Fridays to do Bulgarian folk dance. It's great. But I didn't, for 5 years, almost 5 years, I didn't earn any money working as an artist. And about 2.5 years ago, I had just had a kid. She was about 6 weeks old. And my partner and I, we were at my mom's hockey game at a community center. And my husband said to me, "Oh, look at this notice on this community board. It's a writing group for racialized mothers. You should go to this." And it was by another theater group here in Kitchener called Greenlight Arts. And I looked at him and I was like, "I'm not racialized. Like, I can't go to that. That's not for me." And he was like, "Yeah, actually you are. Like, you should check this out." So I went, and I guess the point of that story is that I realized in this writing group for racialized mothers, and yes, they totally accepted me in this group, that I had my own stories that I wanted to share, and that these stories had value, and really didn't think about that when I was in my 20s working for other people. So since then, that was right before the pandemic, I have focused on creating my own stories, and luckily I've had an amazing amount of support here in the region of Waterloo. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me.
That was incredible to hear. I have so many questions. Okay, before we leave the beginning of your practice, did you have any, like, are there any early memories of movement, or like any early memories of dance that you had? Any moments that stood out that really like piqued your excitement about it?
Oh yes, so many. I loved musicals and musical theater growing up. And this is kind of a funny story that leads into my show a bit. A big theater festival here in Canada, they did a really famous production of The Mikado by Gilbert and Sullivan. I think it was in like 1986 or something. And my family had gone to see it, and they brought home a VHS version. I was too young to go see it live at the theater, but I became like really obsessed with this VHS tape of the Mikado. And I would like put on my kimono that my great grandparents had given to my mom, and these like little Japanese wooden shoes, and I would like dance around with an umbrella like they do in the Mikado. And it gave me such joy to follow their movements and to pretend to sing along with them, thinking that I was like them and that they represented me on the stage, because like Disney films at the time were all like Caucasian people. And then I saw like these Asian people. So I really loved that show. And then of course, as an adult, I realized those are just like Caucasian actors dressed up in Asian makeup. So yes, there was, yeah. I mean, I don't really remember when I realized that, but for a long time in my childhood, I loved the Mikado because I thought they represented me. Yes.
Yeah. That's hard.
It is. It's interesting. I mean, like the theater world has changed so much that in like the 1980s, I've talked to my mom about it recently, and she said it didn't bother her because like there were not a lot of Asian actors working at Stratford or at whatever theater, and that was just the way it is. And things are really different now. If someone puts on a production of The Mikado, probably all the lines making fun of the Emperor of Japan or anything to do with Japan itself is totally taken out of the lyrics and the script. But that's like one of my earliest memories, dancing around and like falling in love with performing. Yeah.
It's such a like incredibly vivid for anyone who's ever had a VHS tape, right? This is what you said was VHS. This like moment of like taking it out of its package, like it has this very distinctive kind of and putting it into the machine, and the machine's like, I want that, and it's really like a powerful physical sensation. Yeah. And like that, I don't know. That's not the most important thing, but when you were describing it, I felt like I could see you like putting it in there.
Totally. And like there's one song called Three Little Maids, and it's the three main women dancing with their parasols. And so I would have to fast forward till I got to the correct part. Like there was no skips, but you had to wait.
That's incredible to hear. And I'm curious about the burnout. So and burnout is it feels like it's almost an inevitability for artists, especially for racialized artists, especially for racialized feminized artists. Like it's like burnout is like something that's just like sitting there waiting for you to come and pick it up. It's all like, I don't know, that's how it's starting to feel these days. Do you feel like there are things you could tell people who are kind of like following behind you to not reach that place?
Well, my burnout was many layers. So, for example, I had been living in Argentina, and I was in a relationship that was ending, and it was like a little traumatic. And that's one part. And then I was working in a theater company that I loved the people that I worked with. We toured English shows through high schools all through South America. I got to travel a lot, but it was a for-profit company, and the owner of the company wanted to make lots of money, and he did not treat his actors well at all. And he even hired people to come and work with us that were not nice people. We had a sword fighting coach. I had to do a scene, like a stage combat scene, and we had a sword fighting coach who came, and he would bring me to tears in rehearsal. And the director and the owner of this company would just sit there, and it got to the point where eventually I left the company. I just walked out. It was maybe the most dramatic thing I've ever done. And then being racialized in Argentina was another element. If I wanted to do an audition for a commercial, for example, I would only the agency would only send me to auditions where they needed an Asian person, but I'm mixed. So most of the time they would be like, you're not Asian enough. Sorry. Why did they send you here? So yeah, it was just exhausting. So I guess, I don't know what my advice would be. Maybe just don't let those layers of the things that are really getting to you pile up. I did. It was just too many things at once piling up that made me think I don't even want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And then what I need to change, and what's the opposite of Latin America, Eastern Europe. I moved to Bulgaria. So it was a big change, and it was at the time it was really the right choice for me to take a step back from going to auditions and working in the arts, and then just taking some time for myself.
I mean, I feel like some of your advice is what you just modeled, leaving, you left, you got up and you left. And I mean, the burnout came anyways for you, but some people don't leave. they just stay stuck there, I guess, forever.
That's true. And you know, when I was in theater school, it was really trendy for profs or for teachers to have this idea that you have to break the actor down to nothing and like bring them to zero, make them cry, make them have no confidence or feel horrible about themselves. And then you build the actor up from scratch. And I realized, yeah, like I cannot work with people. I'm not going to be in a rehearsal with someone who's going to just scream at me to get the product that they want. And that's like the beautiful thing about being in the region of Waterloo and the support I have here. I can choose who I want to work with. And I know like that some people, I guess, are just a little more gentle than others. And I know that as an artist, that those are the people I need to be around.
Mm. Yeah, the people that treat you as a human being and not a vessel.
Not a product.
For the divine use.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also, oh my God, I just have too many questions. Okay. Let me ask you, actually, I'm going to ask you about this piece, 20 Grains of Rice. I mean, I've heard about it, but I think a lot of people might not have heard about it yet. Can you just tell us about the inspiration for it, where it comes from for you?
Yeah, for sure. So this is 20 Grains of Rice is phase 2. Phase 1 happened last summer when I was lucky enough to get artist residency with MT Space and the National Arts Center. And they gave me a chunk of money and said, do whatever you want. And I decided what I wanted was to research my family history on my mother's side, my Japanese Canadian history. And so there were 2 questions that sort of guided me through this process. And I wanted to figure out what parts of Japanese culture still remain in my family and why that is, and what parts of our Japanese heritage have disappeared, when and why, and like looking at all 5 generations. My family has been in Canada for 5 generations. My daughter, my 2-year-old, being the 5th generation. So those are my 2 guiding questions from that first phase. I workshopped it at Impact Festival, a theater festival here in Kitchener. And then I was so thrilled to get this CoBox project to be able to move into phase 2. In the first phase, it was called Michiko, which is my Japanese name, my grandmother's name. Her name is Michiko. And I also gave that name to my daughter. And then this phase, I just wanted to give it a different title. So we changed it to 20 Grains of Rice, Seeds of Reclamation. And the 20 grains, one of the parts that I've been looking at is how language is really one of the most obvious things that we have lost as a generation since Japanese internment in World War II. And I guess in a way it's me dealing with the grief that part is gone from our family. Sorry. So I realized during this process that growing up, I knew about 20 words in Japanese. And my grandmother, who Japanese would have been her first language, even though she was born in Canada, she would have known about 20,000 words, because that's like the minimum number that you know to speak a language fluently. So between my grandmother and me, we've lost so many words. It blows my mind. And then in the show, I don't want to give too much away, but I sort of make a metaphor about the grains of rice and then the 20 words that I know in Japanese. Yeah. So that's the show now. It's still a work in progress. I'm doing a workshop performance at the end of the month in 2 weeks, and I still don't have an ending. So that's that's my challenge for the next 2 weeks, to figure out how I want to end this. It's still invite only. I'm not opening it to the public. And I guess another difference in this phase is I'm looking at the parts that remain and sort of figuring out how I can bridge that, or how I can bridge the past to the present and share some of our culture with my daughter. So yeah, I guess something that's important to note is that I grew up in a very small, very white town. And as a child, kids love to point out differences, right? So I was always the Asian kid. That was like a huge part of my identity as a child, that I was different. I had a different skin tone than my peers. My eyes were different. People would ask me if I was an exchange student or if I was adopted. And I think because of that, I mean, that sounds all very negative, but because of that, I had a confidence in myself that I was different and therefore I was special. And it also made me very interested in why it was that I looked different and what it meant to be Japanese Canadian. So I was very interested in my Japanese Canadian culture. Every project, like in geography, was about Japan. And now that I have my own kid who she does look like me. We have very similar facial expressions, but her complexion is very much like her father's. And no one would ever guess that she had a Japanese Canadian background. So I just realized after having her that unless I teach her about our family history and we talk about it, she's not going to naturally be interested in her Japanese Canadian heritage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely. And it kind of like, to me, like nests inside this other story or thing, fact, reality of Canadians not knowing about Japanese Canadian history. And like this, we've talked about in the past. Yeah, a lot of Canadians being completely unaware, hopefully less and less, of like some of the violences that were inflicted on Japanese Canadians.
Yeah, actually, do you mind if I talk about that a little bit?
I would love for you to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I just want to preface it with that, well, I'm not a scholar, I'm not a researcher. The facts that I know are through my family, through the research I've done about my family, and like the books that I've read. But it's interesting that you said that, because this past federal election, a candidate was going door to door, and a candidate came to talk to my mom, and I don't know how it came up, but the candidate admitted that she had no idea what my mom was talking about, that she didn't know what Japanese internment was. And this is like a person running for the federal government. And this person almost won. Like the election wasn't called for 2 days because it was so close. Yeah, so like this person didn't win in the end, but it was like a very, very close call. So it really made me realize like a lot of people don't know about Japanese internment. And, during the war, I think it started very slowly. I read in a book, they called it Japan phobia, that people in British Columbia slowly started to resent the Japanese because they were taking over they felt like the Japanese were taking over different industries, and they didn't like that. Groups were formed to try and do something about the Japanese problem. And then eventually when Japan joined the Axis, that's when trouble really started. All Japanese people, I think over the age of 16, had to have a registration card. And eventually men who were, the call said, able-bodied, had to go to road camps to help build the Trans-Canada Highway, and were paid like nothing to labor on these roads. And then, of course, the next step was that families that lived within the 100 miles of the coast had to leave their homes, and they were allowed to take one suitcase each, and that was it. They boarded up their everything else or tried to sell like at an extreme loss whatever they had. And you know, they were told they were going to the middle of nowhere to these internment camps. So like, what do? You pack up your work clothes, like you pack up your sweatpants. Okay, not sweatpants, but you don't take your good stuff with you. Families left their heirlooms from Japan. They boarded them up. They left their photo albums thinking that they were going to come home. And so that's thinking that they were going to come home. And most Japanese families either went to Alberta, like my grandmother's family, and they worked on sugar beet farms, or they were sent to an internment camp like my grandfather's family. He went to New Denver. Some families were able to find jobs in Ontario and they were allowed, given special permission to go there. Troublemakers, the leaders in the community, were sent to a prison camp in Ontario. And yeah, it just breaks my heart on the way to internment. Japanese Canadians were sent to Hastings Park fairgrounds in Vancouver, and they were kept in the horse stalls. Like, I guess reading about it, the smell was terrible, the food was terrible, everyone got sick. They were literally sleeping where the horses were. There were maggots everywhere, and they separated the males from the females and the children. So like, dads were not allowed to be with their children. Women were like, had little babies and were not allowed to be with their partners. So just really heartbreaking. And then of course, to add to that, eventually the Canadian government sold all of the property, all of their belongings, and sold it for pennies on the dollar and used that money to pay for the internment. So there's just many levels of heartbreak, and that trauma was passed down through the generations. And that's one of the reasons I don't speak Japanese, right? So yeah, there's lots of heartbreak there. And there for sure is a discussion in the Japanese Canadian community that, not that we need to let this go, but we need to discuss the happy things that have happened for the community. And I for sure agree with that. There are many like beautiful events and people. There's a whole podcast I've been listening to called Sounds Japanese Canadian to Me, and it's like really short 6-minute episodes of Nikkei. Nikkei means like Japanese people living outside of Japan, Nikkei women, and how they have contributed to Canada. And so I do think for sure it's important to talk about the positive things that have happened to the Japanese Canadians.
Yeah, because it's not just the Japanese Canadian identity is not just this awful thing that people did to them.
Right.
But still, like, I don't know, we need to know, like, people can't be running for office and not knowing about this. Yeah. I could have learned it in school. I don't remember learning about it in school. I learned about it because of a folk song by James Keelaghan called Kyries Piano. And that's how, like, as a child, like, that's how I learned about it. Or like, that's how it became solidified in my mind. And this is like why I, like, through art, not through education. And yeah, absolutely. Like, people need
look that up after this. That's what is it called again?
Yeah, it's called Kyries Piano. I can send it to you. Yeah,
that would be.
It's great. Just the story of one Japanese Canadian woman and her piano, and she didn't want them to get it. So
I bet. Like my great grandmother, this is in my show, but she like took her good dishes, her porcelain dishes that she had brought from Japan, and she buried them underneath the floor of the barn, thinking that, like, if looters come, thinking worst case scenario, if looters come, they won't be able to find her good dishes. Not even imagining that the government's going to sell her property. So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's wild. And and it's not over, I don't know, like, it's still embedded in people's bodies. It's still embedded in the wealth that some people have. Like, that money carries on, that I don't know, it's not gone, and we keep, yeah. But okay, yes, but also positive things. Also positive, amazing things like you making an art right now.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
In community, like building community and making an art. Tell me about the art itself. What's okay? So it's invite only, right? So it's invite only. So what about the people who want to come and can't? What can you give to them right now without any spoilers?
Well, if you're here listening to me talk and you would like to come to the show, I would be very pleased to have you. It's going to be May 28th at the Kitchener Public Library, free, of course, at 4 p.m. So you can just send me an email or like find me and I'll send you the details. But yes, I'm not selling tickets or inviting the general public because I don't have an ending yet. But so the story sort of weaves between the past and the present and my joy at being Japanese Canadian and the hardships that my family faced. And it's told through dance, through storytelling. And now, because of Kovacs, I've been able to hire this wonderful artist named Megan Chang, who is making these beautiful projections for me. We're going to have 4 screens, and I think it's going to be really lovely. And Megan is also doing the sound design. She plays violin. She's just an incredible woman. And she's also going to be doing my cousin Maya. She is an artist, Maya Kamo. Look her up. Her art is so beautiful. Megan's going to be projecting some of her work as well, which I'm really excited for that family connection. Yeah, and do you want me to talk a little bit more about my collaborators? I could talk about.
I love it. I love hearing about community. Like I feel like there's like the artist, but I love to hear you. This is your community. This is how you're working with people, building a world for the art to kind of come out of.
It's such a group effort. I have this wonderful, amazing person on my team named Andrea. She's a dance artist in Toronto, and I have admired her for like decades. She has a dance company called Dreamwalker Dance. And when the NAC last summer was like, who would you like to work with? I was like, Andrea Nan is my dream, not thinking that she would ever want to work with me. But she did, and she's just become a really special part of my life. She calls herself an artistic instigator. That's her role in my show. So she guides me, she gives me questions or activities to follow. I mean, she's like much more than an artistic instigator, to be honest. She's very much a mentor and friend. And I'm really lucky to have her on my team. I can't wait. She's been in BC working on another show, but in a week she'll be back to work with me, and I'm so excited to have her. And
wait, before you leave Andrea, when you saw her from a distance, you were like, who is this person? What was it? Was there a specific moment or thing that she did?
Well, she does performances where she combines text and dance and gesture. So she creates like these beautiful gestures that tell a story. And I wanted to create a piece that wasn't just dance and wasn't just text. I wanted that combination. So that was one. And that's like was the main reason. And she's like a very established dance artist. And also, she just has a reputation of being very kind and generous. She's not someone who's going to get into a studio and scream at you. That was like my number one quality I was looking for, as we've discussed. So, and Andrea, she has helped me develop a daily artistic practice, which is something I really didn't have before meeting her. Like I could go weeks without thinking about art or me as an artist. So she's helped me develop that side of me, which has been amazing.
What does that look like, that daily practice?
Well, for me, like as a dancer, when I have time, it's doing a moving meditation. She has a technique called conscious bodies that if you're interested in movement, look it up. I like don't even have the words to explain it, but it's just a way of moving that's fully embodied. And so my daily artistic practice is following these moving meditations that she has recorded for me. And I put on my headphones and it's like Andrea is there in the studio with me. It's so lovely. But sometimes when I don't have time to do that, which is often, it's just like taking 5 or 10 minutes for myself to work on my art, to like be in the shower and think like, oh yeah, like, that would work well for my show. Just taking that time, especially as a new mom, to think about art and not just push it aside, that it is important and that it is a big part of me.
How does that relate? Like, I'm curious about motherhood and artistic practice. I mean, I know a lot of people have written about this, thought about this, but I also feel like it's been not celebrated. It's been, I don't want to say like quashed, but a lot of, I think mothers are encouraged to pretend like they don't have kids. They're not mothers, they're artists. So what is it like for you, these two worlds?
Yeah, that's like my artistic life right now is really two streams, the Japanese Canadian side and the intersection of motherhood and caregiving. Those are my two major interests. And it's hard. It is really hard because Isabel, my kid, is the best part of my life. Like she brings me, my partner and I, we call her the bringer of joy because that's what she does. She brings such joy to our lives, but she's also like the bringer of extreme energy and like, I need your attention at all times. Like I'm literally at my mother's house right now because if I was at home, Izzy would be here on my lap saying like, mama, like come play with me. I need this right now. Her favorite thing to say is right now. And even, this is a great story, for the Kovacs interview with Sheila and Isabella, I had planned it so that she would be asleep during the interview. It would be during her nap. And of course, that day she was like, I'm not napping. And I really wanted this job and I was totally freaking out. And I ended up like breastfeeding her during the interview. Oh my God. Sheila and Isabella. So yes, like they were so kind and generous. And that was like another sign, like this is an organization I want to be a part of because Sheila and Isabella were so understanding about me answering their questions while I breastfed my kid.
I mean, I hope we eventually move to a world where that is like the norm. I know that it is like good now, but I hope that we move to a world where, yeah, okay, of course.
Can I give a shout out to another? Theater Direct is a theater company in Toronto that is doing really amazing work for artists and caregivers. And they have an offshoot called Balancing Act run by this amazing dancer, Susie Burpee. If you are out there and you are a caregiver and an artist, check it out. It's once every month, I think the second Tuesday of the month. Oh no, I don't scratch that. I'm not sure, but it's like a support group for artists who are caregivers. And we talk about different art pieces, but we also talk about how the industry can change and support each other. It's really a beautiful community.
That sounds incredible. And I love that it's caregivers because it can take so many forms, you know?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you about, so in this project, we've all been, one of the many things we've been looking at is something called digital audience engagement. And in some ways we've been defining that as we go. What is it? What does it mean to have an audience? Like, is an audience a community? What is the digital element? Like, what does it mean to be engaged? Like, how much conversation does there need to be for it to be engaged? So many questions, but I'm curious how you've related to this, like what digital audience engagement has meant for you in this process.
Yeah. So one of the really sad parts, in my opinion, about Japanese internment was that the Japanese community was dispersed across the country. And to this day, we are not as connected as they were. Sorry, I'm like choking on something. As they were before the war. And I just feel like this digital engagement for me is a way to be able to share my art with Japanese Canadians all over the country, whether they're out east or out west. And that's sort of what I'm aiming for. Of course, I want everyone to come and see it, but I'm excited to share it with artists who are, especially artists who are in Vancouver, and have them be able to engage with something, because they're not going to come to Kitchener to see my show, but because of this funding, I'm able to create a website. I'm able to make a video to show them what it is that I'm working on. So yeah, that's really what it is for me. I don't have answers about digital engagement, honestly. It's still a big mystery for me, but that's what I've been focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still coming to understand it too. I'm still, but like one element that I'm curious about is like, is there a way that these audience, they experience your work? Is there a way that they're speaking back to you? Is there like some kind of feedback loop?
We're hoping to create that on the website. Ideally, I would love to have like a digital bowl of rice, and then anyone who comes to see the show or like watches the bits that I'm going to put on the website can write on the grain of rice. I mean, I'd have to curate it. I think we talked about this in one of our meetings, but yeah, I'd have to curate it, but like feedback or maybe something that worked or something that didn't work, or even like their own family story with immigration or forced migration. I would love to have photos, like a collage of different photos that people sent in over the country. Yeah,
that would be really beautiful. There are ways to curate that, you know, like you can put things in a filter and then once you've approved them, they come through. This sort of thing.
I will put in the time for that for sure, because I think it would be lovely. So yeah.
Okay, this is the point where we open up the floor and say, people have questions. They should wait. Sam's gonna explain it in the chat. Samantha always explains it in the chat better than I can. But yeah, if you have questions, you can write the questions in the chat.
Can I mention a few other things about the show?
Yeah, you can say anything. You can, and I'll tell them this, and then we'll just sit on the questions. They can put out their hands and stuff. Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a big shout out to the Kitchener Public Library. They have been so supportive of my work and really excited about my project. And it happened really naturally. The first thing I did when I wanted to create this show, like back in the summer with the NAC residency, is I went to the library and like got books out about Japanese Canadian history. That was like the first thing. And then I knew I wanted to do recording voiceover story during the show. And if you don't know, the Kitchener Public Library has an amazing recording studio. It's like totally professional. Actually, Samantha, she works there. And the people are so nice. And I don't know anything about recording, but they helped me. I brought my mom, I brought my husband. I wanted to make a soundscape with dry rice to play during the show. So I like brought these big tin bowls and like all this rice, and I'm like throwing rice around trying to make different sounds and create music. And they were like, sure, like, what do you need? Let us help you. So then when I was looking for a venue to do my workshop in, Cameron, who we all love and adore, suggested KPL. And yeah, if you know me personally, you know that I love libraries in general. So I was very excited about this. And Like from the moment we went into the theater there, they have a beautiful professional theater. I had like many requests. Cameron had many suggestions, and the library people, I see Nathan is here. Hi, Nathan. They were just so accommodating, and it wasn't a no, we can't do that, or no, like we can't change that. This is the library. It was they wanted to work with me as an artist, and I appreciate that so much. So yes, so huge shout out. I love you, Kitchener Public Library.
I mean, libraries are magical. I just want to say libraries to me have always been magical. I feel like they represent, maybe there's like a lot of things I could say, but I'm not going to, but I just feel like they represent like some kind of like community pool, community resource that I just like so deeply value. And I love how KPL specifically has kind of, I mean, a lot of libraries are doing this, but I feel like KPL chose early and has been working really hard at finding ways to serve people. Like they're like, okay, books matter. Books are still good. I love books. I love books so much, but also here's some other things, you know, like I remember going to KPL and being like, whoa, there's all this cool music gear that I could use, like just like so many interesting things and people who are there to support you.
Yeah,
totally.
Really, if you can't afford internet, you can borrow a hotspot with them or from them for I think like 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks, and take this hotspot home and have internet for free. Like, thank you, library. That's amazing. And yesterday, after I finished rehearsal in the theater, I didn't have like a space booked for Megan. Megan had driven down from Toronto to work with me and test out the projections, and I didn't have like a studio booked, but the library has these big, beautiful open rooms that you can book with your library card for free. And we were able to go in there and finish up what we needed to do for 2 hours. So yeah, I love the library.
Yeah, libraries are amazing. Library love. Does anyone, I mean, I have some more questions I can ask, but are there questions that anyone wants to ask? Again, you can write it in the chat and we'll read it out loud, or you can be promoted to a panelist.
Oh, hi, everyone. This is nice. It's not just us. There's other people here. My mom's here. Do you want to say hi to my mom?
I would love to say hi to your mom.
I want to say hi, Mommy. Aww. This is my mom, Denise.
Hi.
She's
hi,
great.
Denise.
She actually makes an appearance in my show. She sings in Japanese. It's recorded. And she, oh my gosh, my sister's here. She says, hi, Mom. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so my mom actually, she sings in the show, recorded at the library, and she does a little section about how Japanese people wash rice. So thanks, Mommy. Oh, my brother's here. Oh, my brother's here too. Hi. Oh, it's a family affair.
I love it. I love this. I feel like every talk should have all the family, because I just feel like the family is always so part of the art. Do you know, like it's always like in this case, obviously even more so, but like this is the story. This is a family story, you know? So it's great to meet you. I can't wait to hear the story of washing rice. The song. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mommy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
My mom crashed my interview.
My mom would never. She'd be like, get that camera away from me. I'm not going in your interview.
It's funny. Beforehand, I was like, Mom, you have to be quiet. You can't use the internet because it might disturb my interview. Poor Mommy.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about, okay, you're at this moment in your practice, you know, you're working through this piece. It's been in the works for a long time, like through a lot of different organizations, a lot of people, a lot of mentorship. As like you kind of like look forward, because the world doesn't seem to be ending. Like it keeps looking like it's going to end and then it doesn't quite end. But what are you seeing? Like, what do you see in the summer? What do you see as you kind of like move forward with this?
Oh goodness, for my show or for my artistic practice? Or...
Your practice, yeah, your practice.
Oh gosh.
Like if you could dream, let's not go like so soon, unless you want to. Let's not go super big picture. But if you could just like dream of like a beautiful day, August 22nd, let's say, and yeah, are you getting up and doing your daily practice?
Yeah, for sure. Like? Yeah, like going outside with my kid and my spouse, maybe getting to go to a dance studio somewhere for a few hours while my kid naps. That's usually my routine, to have some alone time in the studio. That's ideal. Yeah, that's like the perfect day for me, to have a little bit of time with my family and then a little bit of time in the dance studio alone, or with whatever collaborator I'm with. Specifically, there's a few things I'm looking forward to. Do you want me to talk about those?
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Okay, so in September, the National Association of Japanese Canadians is hosting an artist symposium in Victoria, and I've been invited to attend that. It's going to be 40 artists from all Japanese Canadian artists from all over Canada, and we're going to meet. And the guiding question is something, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something like, what is worth passing on to the next generation? And I'm very excited about this. In like the write-up for what this symposium is, it says something about like how we were dispersed across Canada and now we're all going to come back to Victoria and like have a place in Victoria where we were it's 80 years since internment this year. So 80 years after being kicked out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that very, very much. And also, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a break from creating. I'm for sure am most comfortable when I'm when I'm working for other people. That's like my most comfortable spot. So Tara Butler, dancer here in Kitchener, I'm going to be part of a dance residency with her, but she's in charge. Like, I don't have to make any artistic decisions. So it's going to be great because I can dance, but I don't have to put in that other emotional, mental effort. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, that's my most comfortable place. But of course, I have to push myself as an artist to go to those uncomfortable spots.
Yeah, I am curious about, okay, I have two questions. They're like not related to each other at all. So one question is about like your kid and dance. Do you dance with your kid? Do you have like a practice together? Is that okay?
All the time. Like, she just like, she doesn't like wearing clothes and she just like loves throwing her body around and moving. Yeah, she loves to dance so much and she wants everyone to participate. So if we're dancing before bedtime and dad is on the bed, like not participating, she's like, dad, 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 dad. Yes, move. She's a little bossy, but that's okay. I don't mind that. And yeah, I don't know if I will put her into dance. That's like, I don't know. If she wants to, maybe we'll see. But she's only 2.5, so for now we'll just let her run around naked and move her little body.
I'm curious about that like it sounds like maybe not. Maybe you don't want her to go to dance. Were dance classes bad for you?
Well, oh no, not at all. Like, I went to a really great studio, Carousel Dance Center, where the atmosphere was really supportive. It was more about creativity. We didn't do competition. But yeah, like, I mean, once I got to the Toronto Metropolitan University, that's the first time I've said that, the former Ryerson University. It was so competitive there, and that's not my thing. I sort of just faded into the background a little bit. And I don't really want that for my kid. So we'll see. We'll see.
That's really not, I mean, being an artist, I mean, everyone's an artist. Everyone makes art. Everyone has an art. Everyone, at least I feel like, has the right to artistic practice just as much as everyone has the right to learn stuff or has the right to having some kind of spiritual practice or has the right, like, I feel like that's part of being a human. And it's very strange to live in a time where it's like, okay, to survive and pay your rent, you need to become popular or known. To become popular or known, you need to be pushing others, like pushing yourself up and building a brand. And like, there's just like a lot tied up in that. that's like very alienating, I think, to the self, you know. So I don't know if I don't have a child, but I do think it's a weird, it's a strange time to be an artist.
Yes, yeah, for sure. There's a lot of conversations right now too about like who is able to become an artist professionally, because like to go to dance class, my parents had to save and pay for those dance classes. Not everyone can afford to do that. So I mean, that's another really tricky conversation. Yeah. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to the last, down to the wire. So if anyone has any burning questions. Oh, amazing. Hello, Nathan.
Oh,
welcome
hi,
to the
Nathan.
stage.
I didn't look at myself before I turned the camera on. This is exciting. I took the day off of work. I really wanted to see this, but I am at work doing work, so it didn't really work out. Kate, maybe you could comment on this because it's been a real pleasure having you here. Why do you think this is working out so well? Like I got to sit in on, you know, as you're testing and I was blown away. The vibe was good. You know, you and the projectionist and Cameron were working really well together. It really seemed to be coming together. What do you think is conspiring to make this confluence so exceptional?
That's a great question, Nathan. And for those of you who are wondering, Nathan is the person at the library that I work with. Is it community development? You're in charge of community development. Yes. So I don't know. I feel as though the amount of times you have said yes to me is very helpful. Like there's just that really positive vibe that things can happen at the library. And that it's, I think, like, I don't want to name names, but sometimes if you go to a theater, the people in charge will say, no, you can't do that, or no, we're not able to do that for you. And there's really no reason why, but everything that I've asked for within reason has been possible, like using the extra projectors that Megan's going to bring, like using the sensor that she's going to bring. We're going to be putting up these big screens on the stage and laying down a dance floor, and that has all been okay with the library.
If I can follow up, that's very kind, but we're responding to you and your professionalism and your ability. It feels very low touch to us, to tell you the truth. So yeah, I don't like, how do you maintain that kind of vibe? I guess I know you've got a kid, you've got an artistic practice, like you're making something new. You know, how do you think that you're setting it up to make it so easy for us to say yes? Let's flip it back on you.
Well, I think as an artist, I have learned to be flexible within reason. Like I know that sometimes things aren't going to go exactly the way I want it. And so I have a contingency plan. Okay, we can't do it that way, and that's fine. I can be flexible. Let's go with plan B. Oh, my cousin's here. I see she wrote, you are particularly grateful and positive to work with. Oh, thanks, Maya. Maya is the artist that has been creating for my show. Yeah, I mean, I am grateful to be in the space and that you have opened up the theater to me. I love the library. I've been going to KPL since I was a little kid. I had no idea there was a theater down there until Cameron said that. So yeah, I mean, I really want to get the word out to other artists in the community. There's this beautiful theater, downtown Kitchener. Go and check it out. So yeah, I don't know. Why do you think it works, Nathan?
Yeah, we're responding to your positivity and vision. Like it's a good vision. You're not asking for anything that exceptional, to tell you the truth. We have a theater downtown, and things aren't like the project you're doing is exceptional, but the way that you're setting it up it makes me feel like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. Like we're hosting your final kind of not run through, but the actual project on the same day as the Mel Brown Festival. And I'm not sure that we would have done that with another artist who didn't seem so capable in the space.
Okay,
You know what
so
I mean?
I thought of one more thing. Like, I have an amazing team of people behind me, and that is helpful. I think it would be a really different story if it was just Kate, the artist, coming in alone. But I have Cameron Slip, who I think should have his own X-Camera presentation one day, production manager, who is so organized and keeps me on track. And part of that is because Inner Arts Matrix was able to get funding to pay him to do this. And yeah, so I have this amazing support team through Inner Arts Matrix that is helping me to be organized and helping me to be able to explain what I want to you in a cohesive way, which is always helpful.
That's a good point. The funding piece, like how much easier is it to be funded to do this project in exploration? You know, to manage a budget instead of managing a budget of nothing or a deficit. I think we meet a lot of artists, or, you know, have experience in artistic practice, spending our own money, right? Or working in a deficit or hoping it will work out.
Yeah. The spending your own money, that's like so common in our communities. So yeah, it makes me just that much more grateful to Inner Arts Matrix that they were able to get this funding from the different organizations and give it to 5 different artists for is it 5 or 6 different artists? It's 5 for the Kovacs project. Because I wouldn't, like, there's no way I would be able to afford this on my own without them. So, or like I would be able to do a compromise, but just having a production manager. Oh, I also have a stage manager, not just a production manager. You'll be meeting Marie in a couple weeks, and she also just brings a whole nother element to this show. And I don't have to worry about like, oh, are the lighting cues going to be right? Or is the sound loud enough? Marie is going to worry about that. Cameron's going to worry about that. I just have to worry about writing an ending for the play or whatever it is, remembering the choreography. Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, I think it's really good. We're at time, but I think it's really good to talk about money. It's easy to gloss over it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not that we did, but then people who don't have money are like, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? And it's like, yeah, ultimately, artistic work often comes out of a financial opportunity, and that financial opportunity comes out of real labor, you know, like Isabella Stefanescu got really good at writing grants, you know,
amazing,
and really good at money. And that has helped a lot of people do a lot of things. And yeah, it's like, and Sheila now, like AD of Inner Arts Matrix, is writing grants, you know, signing checks, working late nights. And like, there's a lot of art administrators who set like the financial scene to create opportunities for artists.
So it's so amazing that I didn't have to do that part. Isabella and Sheila did that part, and now I just get to create art. And yes, Isabella is like a grant writing machine. And for those artists, if there's an artist out there watching this in the future, Inner Arts Matrix sporadically holds workshops for grant writing, and they will help you write your grant and point out what it is you need to do to change or to do differently. So yeah. Yes, yeah, Isabella, she's, yeah. Thanks. I see you there. So thank you, Isabella, and thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Kate. Thank you for the conversation. I have felt like it's been such a pleasure to talk to you throughout this and to watch it go somewhere, like watch your work progress and become what it's becoming. I'm very grateful for the chance to talk to you about this and be involved in your practice. And I can't wait to see like what movement, theater, performance things happen next with you. Like it's beautiful. Yeah.
There's one last thing before we close. My initial meeting with Isabella and Sheila, they told me, you know, this is still an experimental phase. If you at the end of May get up on stage and and you fail, it's okay. Like, you are going through the process right now, and that is really rare that an organization doesn't want a fully finished, polished product. That they gave me permission to experiment and make mistakes and to try new things. So if in 2 weeks I still don't have an ending, it's gonna be okay, which is
Yeah.
so. Thank you so much, Marie. I really appreciate it.
My
And thanks
pleasure.
everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, everyone. Come on back, Sam. We're ready for you to guide us out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, this was so good. Kate and Marie, thank you so much. Kate, I am so excited to hopefully see your workshop performance, but also just like see how this continues to develop, because I don't know, you put so much love and care and like really a piece of yourself into this project. And it's so incredible. Like, these are stories that need to be told. Like, I didn't learn about Japanese internment in high school history class. Like, that's learning that like I've had to do on my own. And so, yeah, I'm so glad that you were able to, yeah, like share that part of your history and your story. And I'm sure it takes a lot of courage and a lot of emotional energy. So thank you so much for doing that work.
Thanks, Amanda.
So yeah, of course. Always supporting you. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is our last X Camera Talk for a while. We're going to be taking a break just because there's a lot going on with Cove Covox. There are, I think there are a couple of more public performances and then a whole bunch of workshop performances coming up. So keep an eye on our social media. We'll be sharing about that as stuff happens. But yeah, if not, I hope that everybody has a lovely afternoon. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. Yeah, and I hope to see you all again in the future. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.